So we're going to jump into kind of our relationship with politics. My heart posture for this conversation is to be just very vulnerable and very authentic. That is what we are about at the Lipstick Network. We are unapologetically authentic. We're not trying to be bougie or any of that, but we're women of excellence and who are legacy minded. And so as we're stepping into an upcoming election year, really wanted to check in with you ladies. I know you have to have this posture of expertise, but I want to kind of talk to you about when you're taking deep breaths and when you're really busy. What is your relationship with politics, and how are you preparing your hearts and mind for the ramp up has begun? And what kind of advice you have for us as women who want to connect and support, but don't want to drown under the weight of it all?
I'm going to let Beth go first because I know she's been articulating this a lot on the show recently.
Yeah, I've been trying to really process, what did I learn from the last election? What did I learn from the Trump presidency, from COVID? And I think that a lot of my sins come from a place of wanting to do all of that repair myself, and to treat the whole world like my household. And it's, I think, a great thing to have some of that intention, but I take it too far. And so I keep trying to go back to a metaphor that Sarah and I use pretty often, which is that we just want to put good things in the river, but recognize that it is a big river and a lot of people are putting things in it. And much of what I do will be diluted. Some of what I do will have impact downstream in ways that I cannot see. The most important thing is for me to put what I put in the river with integrity, and also to feel a sense of grace with myself when I miss, because a lot of it gets diluted and it rolls down the river. So releasing that sense that going into a presidential campaign is a task for me, but then converting my anxiety into tasks, because that helps me figure out, what can I do? What can I put in that river? So I can donate to candidates who I want to see on a debate stage. I can register in the primary where I think my vote will be most impactful, or where I'm saying the most with my vote. I can encourage my friends and neighbors to vote. The last election cycle, I hosted a ballot club at my house. It's a book club, except that we just have like a PowerPoint of every local election and really focused on the local elections, not the national ones, because that's where a lot of people in the community do not have information. They skip that part of the ballot. So recognizing, here's where we have the most power. This is the smallest offshoot of that river, where when we put stuff in it, it has more potency. So just really focusing on, what do I need to release? What do I need to gather up and do? And then how do I know when to step back and say, okay, I did my piece, and then the rest will be what it is. And I, like every person who's lived throughout human history, will find a way through no matter what happens. Because as hard as things feel right now, a moment of orienting yourself into the past and looking forward into the future can get me in a space of real gratitude for living in this moment too.
I think that's so good. I think, Beth, you do such a good job with like boundaries. Sarah, I feel like sometimes, because you've got that like sense of justice, I think you're an Enneagram 1, like, all of that. That sounds so perfect, Beth, but like, how do you guys as different individuals fill in each other's gaps, right? Like how does that exist? Sarah?
Well, sorry for the charades. I was signaling an encroaching family member that I'm on a phone call, or I'm on a Zoom. I don't know what the charade is for Zoom. Is it this? Is it my face is in a box?
Let's do that now.
Okay, that's it. I'm in on Zoom. I like it. I just made that up today. Well, the first thing I learned from the last election cycle is I have to exercise every day to send my body the signal that I am not actually in danger and should not be in fight or flight 24 hours a day. So that's the first thing I learned last year. Or otherwise I'm an anxious mess. And I'm not talking about light yoga. I'm talking accelerated heart rate. That's how I got through 2020. Because it's so hard not to get swept up into it, because it's not like you don't understand the stakes. It's not like you can't feel the stakes. And so I like, on a really pragmatic level, have a different self-care practice during the election, like straight up, whatever self-care, whatever stress management, whatever you want to use. I know self-care has become sort of a wrung out term. Whatever you use, know that during that season of life, you might have to add some tools to the toolkit.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing I learned in a real way. I have, within my personality, like I have a lot of passion, but I do reach a point where it's like a switch has been flipped off. And I don't push myself to the point of like, I don't know, like rage or anything. Like, I remember vividly when Donald Trump was elected, I thought, I will never get what I want out of this. There will never be sort of a punitive outcome that will make me feel good about what this has wrought. So I just accepted that instead of wanting it all the time and searching for it all the time. And it's the same with the election. Even if who I want wins, like it will not ever be enough. There will still be suffering and oppression and injustice. And it took me way too many years of my life to figure that out. I've articulated recently that I'm realizing there's this meta narrative, this undercurrent in our political conversation that, like, if there is the presence of something bad, that means we've made no good progress. And I have to reject that. And I can do that because I'm a black and white thinker as an Enneagram. Well, something's still wrong. That means everything we've done up to this point hasn't worked. No, that's not the reality. And we might win this election, or we might lose this election of a lifetime. And there will still be another election. One of my most favorite electoral moments is when Barack Obama came out and said, the sun rose today. We're still here. And so, like, just that constant perspective of like holding both things to be true. The stakes are high and nothing is permanent, both good and bad. I have to really dial into that during the election cycle, because the narrative is, this is the only thing that matters. And everything will be fixed or irretrievably broken based on the outcome. And that's just almost never true.
But it feels so true. And
it feels true. But listen, here's a mantra that I tell myself all the time as an Enneagram 1. Emotions are relevant, but they are not always reality. How we feel is important, but it is not always a complete description of the reality we are living in. In fact, it is almost never a complete description of the reality we are living in. And I have to tell myself that all the time.
I think that's so good. Marissa, do you have any thoughts?
Well, I like what you were saying, because it is definitely kind of, for myself, walking out of this mindset of how I grew up, which was almost like putting a savior complex on our elected officials, right? If we elect the right person, the right party, everything will fall into place. And if that doesn't happen, it's because of the other side, right? And so really 2020 and Trump really made me take steps back and say, but what, and in discussions with family members who would say, well, what about this? And what about the good things over here? And it's like, well, but it doesn't, why do I get so abrasive when you're pointing out one side of it's like, it can be good and bad, right? We can say that this is not okay. And we can still look at, especially early on, if there were good indicators. And that's for local politicians, whoever, right? And so recognizing that they are not going to fix this world. They are not going to fix our life. They are not going to fix my daughter's life, but it's how these conversations and what we're doing locally that will build that up in the right way.
I have 600 thoughts in response to what you just said.